This is a whole world thing. This is just not a North America thing. It is a world thing. Their structures are the same. Their language it is the same across the globe. And I have friends all over the world. And my buddy Mark has friends all over the world. And anywhere you can possibly think of, there are structures. And it doesn't matter the size of the forest. It doesn't matter if you have a little patch of, like less than an acre of forest. They're there.
Alex Oien's story is only paralleled by the few unfortunate enough to experience such upheaval. Between Bigfoot, elemental beings, and frequent abductions, the duration of his experiences span over the course of a lifetime. By a forest in New Hampshire, Alex may be very well living next to or on top of a natural portal.
We can be walking right through their, house, in fact, and not bother them.
Do you think that has anything to do with perhaps time in the way that certain structures have been here and then
Yes.
they've been gone?
Yes.
Or do you think it's more multidimensional in a certain respect?
That too. It's definitely multi or interdimensional. Time has definitely been a factor because, this trident and that big trident at the beginning of my parking lot took, hundreds of years to grow in that way, and they procured it as a little baby plant. They're like, we're gonna make this, and it's grown up into that. All this broken stuff is leaning on their trident, which is giving off power, which is making them invisible to us if they need be, which at this point, since we're in here, they are.
So, as I'm standing here talking to Alex, the first thing that I'm noticing that's not something more peripheral is that my hands are heating up. Back when I was very focused on using healing energy and free energy in this way, such as Reiki, this is what I would experience. But I've found that there are certain places, you will actually hear me say it 10 years ago in the Concord Colonial Inn video, that my hands started heating up, and that's what I'm feeling here. As I'm talking, the energy is still rising. I almost feel like I'm in a paranormal spot. Yeah. That makes any sense, guys. So this is really interesting. It's a sacred space.
We're definitely in a paranormal spot. 100%.
As Alex led me into the forest, I had the overwhelming sensation that we were being watched, and that these energies were as much next to us as they were within the brush. I observed some sort of electricity undulating through my body, reminiscent of paranormal investigations I had embarked on in the past. I even felt it the moment I stepped out of my car to meet Alex. Alright, first thing I want to say is that when I got out of the car to meet Alex here, immediately I felt like I stood in a field wherein all the hairs on my arms were standing straight up.
Mine are too. They're starting. I feel it. Like there's an electricity going on right now, and it's from this whole area.
Holy crap. Let me see if I can capture this. I don't know if I can.
He had goosebumps though. So
oh my god. It's coming in waves. Like I can feel it.
Yeah, it is in waves. I got it right now. It's coming over me.
So we were talking about this particular tree right here,
which happens to be a trident made by Bigfoot, and they made this since birth. They made this since birth, and this is one of their special areas. It is like a sacred area to them, and they are literally everywhere. I bet if we took pictures of this bush and in the tree, they'd be in the tree because they're always in it. And there's stuff that you'll have to look back on, but there's a portal between this trident tree and that pine tree up there. In between, there's a crazy portal there, and they're coming and going all day long, all night long. Their structures are a language. I said this in the last video, and I have to give credit to Mark Abell for figuring this out for Colorado Bigfoot. I know I keep saying his name, but he is a mentor to me, and he taught me how to read the forest and how to read their structures. And Bigfoot and these forest beings have a language. It is X's, breaks, bends, beautiful arches, triangles, stacking of trees in an unnatural area, teepees. I 100 million% believe that Native Americans mimicked these Bigfoot and beings in our woods with the teepees and the totem poles, because the totem poles are always found in the middle of their world or their home, and it's a place of worship, and they seem to hold it in high regard and put it in the middle, a focal point. And it's generally a burnt piece of wood, which is really weird, because there will be no sign of any fire anywhere else, but this one tree is burned in the middle of their world. And I don't quite understand that, and my friend Mark doesn't quite understand that, but I almost think, in my opinion, that maybe they did the burning themselves, because there is no evidence of a fire in a lot of these cases, and there's just one burnt log. Like, that's a focal point in the middle of their structures. And in my woods, there is pretty much every structure that is in their language, and their language is also a power grid. They make these structures to conduct power and to connect the force energy to their energy, because everything is energy. Everything. And that's how they work, and that's how they've always worked.
With such a comprehensive analysis of a language indigenous to the woods, Alex's passion and dedication is on display. As all matter is comprised of energy, subatomic vibrations, and blending of frequencies, all things may exist in the same space, separated by these parameters.
And then I got taken again, and then they showed me, and I got taken on this path that we had just walked on when they finally showed me, and then they phased me back on the path. But, I mean, you just from being here, you can tell this is like, it's a special area. And it's always going to be theirs. It will always be theirs.
It's one thing to walk into nature, only to find yourself engulfed in an odd electromagnetic field, or become witness to a fleeting shadow. But it is an entirely different experience when abduction occurs without consent. Even more unsettling is Alex's account of the ease in which he and his friend had been taken.
My opinion on pareidolia, yes, that can happen in some rare instances, but I believe that most pareidolia is actually a being itself, and they are able to bend light or cloak themselves. People don't like the word cloak, but it's what we know, as humans, that they are using some sort of technology to mask themselves, to bend the light around themselves. Like a chameleon or an octopus, they can change their environment around themselves, and we can see through them. But pareidolia itself does not happen very often. It is more so often an actual being than actual pareidolia.
Some of Alex's photographic evidence could, on first glance, be dismissed as pareidolia, but the consistency in what he captures, orb-like beings and fairy-esque energies, reminds me of the artist Brian Froud, who claims he paints the elementals that he interacts with. Perhaps much of what we see is not pareidolia, but a different filter of interpretation that we will understand as we evolve.
A lot of people don't know this, and even the best in the game with Bigfoot don't know that the actual knocks that people hear are not the Bigfoot themselves actually taking a branch and hitting a tree. That's not actually happening. There is no being standing there whacking with a tree. It is, and I've caught this on video several times, it is an orb, an energy orb that flies at a tree or a branch and is able to make that forceful sound just with energy. I don't know what actually causes the transfer of sound but the orb itself flies directly at the tree, makes a 90-degree turn, boom, boom, makes the knock. And they can do that multiple times, and I've seen it with my own eyes and on camera, multiple orbs flying into the tree, and then the sound instantly happens when that orb touches that tree. and immediately turns back and flies away. So it's an instantaneous transfer of energy through a ball of energy, which is it's a misconception. People think that it's a being taking a baseball bat, bink, and hitting a tree, but that's not happening. They do have physical devices for cloaking or transportation purposes. So my really good friend Mark Abell, he does Colorado Bigfoot, and he's a good friend of mine. He has captured, and I've captured myself, these portable X's. They look like crosses, and they're white in color or bright, but they are an X or a cross, and they hold it, and that seems to be their technology. And we've also got pictures of them wearing headsets, what look to be helmets, and clothing and glasses, and they definitely use staffs all the time, whether it be an actual wooden staff or one of their staffs that's made out of something else altogether. But they do have technology. They're able, a lot of people think that, they overlook looking up in trees, but always look up in trees, because it's also not what we think. They can have these invisible platforms, like a diving board basically, that are there. It's a platform, it's a tower, it's a lookout point. They can stand in the middle of a tree. So it's way beyond our thinking and what we think is actually real, but no, they have this technology. They can stand in the middle of a 20-foot tree, right in the middle of it, and they're not gonna fall. They're standing there, and it's an invisible platform, but they are on something that they know is there, and that's a really unique thing that they can do. So they are always watching us in the trees, even in invisible platforms themselves, not around a tree. And there's invisible buildings as well, as I was just showing you. There invisible buildings all over the place. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds bizarre, but there are invisible buildings and structures, even monuments, that these beings have. And we can walk right through them. They're standing there, they're giant structures, but we can walk right through them, and they're not in our dimension. We gotta think way outside the box for everything that I'm speaking of, because it's not in our human thinking. And these houses is where they conduct meetings, where they have their families, where they go to hang out. It's really, really interesting that their world crosses over ours. It's there, we're there, they're there, but we're not touching, we're not feeling anything.
Conceptually, your overall frequency matches that of other physical objects around you. If you were to create a synthetic electromagnetic field around your hand, per se, and vibrate the space within to a higher or lower overtone, theoretically, you could pass through solid physicality.
I mean, just from the pictures and video that I've been taking, and my friends that are in the know, that like I am, about the forest, we see them piggybacking and stacking each other, because it seems like only one out of the group will have this technology for cloaking, and they need to touch another being that is connected to that technology. So it's like if I put my hand on your shoulder and somebody else put their hand on my shoulder behind me and so forth, a link that connects them to the energy, connects them to their structures. If there are structures that are next to them that is a power grid on the ground, they do a lot of groundwork. The groundwork with trees and everything, and arranged in formation, and most of the time they're always off the ground. They are not touching the ground, and then there will be a whole grid going from one structure to the other, next structure to the next structure, and they generally congregate in that area that is designated with the structures on the ground and in the trees and whatnot. They don't tend to go outside that very much, because then there's opportunity to have a mistake and to be caught. And as long as they're in this grid of their technology, they are cloaked and we cannot see them, and that goes for their buildings as well.
We decided to explore a nearby graveyard, one that Alex has had many experiences in. At one point, through our conversation, we noticed that our voices were not carrying throughout the environment the way they had moments before.
Please give us a lot of evidence. That would be amazing. Come and show yourselves, guys. You've shown me and done amazing things in here for me. So please do it with my friend. So much has happened in here when I've been in here at night. It's insane. That's another thing. Bigfoot in cemeteries.
Really?
They seem to surround them. They also bury their dead like we do. That's something that I don't know if talked about very much.
It's been mentioned, but people have different accounts of how far they go.
My buddy Mark has found well over 100 graves, but he will never divulge where they are, and he will never dig into them because it's disrespectful, and he knows what's in there. They're all structures around it, and there's paths as if they're mourning, and going up paying their respect. I showed him exactly where my friend and I were taken, and that forever changed my life and my friend's life. That was quite the night. He didn't believe me. My friend did not believe me that there were beings or Bigfoot in the woods that we grew up in, because we played in those woods when we were younger and were oblivious and did not have the knowledge that we do now of what's really going on in the forests and the forests across the world. This is a whole world thing. This is just not a North America thing. It is a world thing. Their structures are the same. Their language, it is the same across the globe. And I have friends all over the world, and my buddy Mark has friends all over the world, and anywhere you can possibly think of, there are structures. And it doesn't matter the size of the forest. It doesn't matter if you have a little patch of, like less than an acre of forest. They're there. They're there. And that night that my friend and I got taken, it was a really foggy night, and fog is nature's camouflage, and I almost think that they might make the fog. And I'm not quite sure about that, but that's just kind of a theory, because this night that my friend and I went out was the heaviest fog that I've ever seen in my area. And we walked out into the woods, and I showed him where I showed Michael the one of the structures, and we got too close, essentially. And what I was later told, which I'll get to, is that we interrupted something that we shouldn't see. But when we went out there, things started happening. A giant being jumped out of the tree right next to me, and we both felt the thud on the ground. We felt that thud on the ground, and at that point I knew it was time to go. I knew that something was about to happen, and that we needed to kind of, back off their territory. And my friend agreed because he felt that thud and never felt something so heavy hit the ground and not see anything behind it to, kind of back it up. And we walked out, and just where Michael and I walked out to the train tracks, and right as we hit the train tracks, we up and went. We vanished. And we got placed back on a path that, I guess, in a point A, from A to B, if you were to do it, it wasn't all that far, maybe 150, 200 yards tops. But if you were to traverse it, to walk it, it would be over 500 yards and also across 50 feet of water. And yeah, that forever changed my life and changed my friend's life. My friend, he and I talk about it still, but he doesn't want me to tell his name, and he wants, it really changed him. He gets scared about it, and I don't blame you for being scared, because it's not every day that you get taken to some other world. And in my case, almost every day. In that tree or that tree behind there in the middle, a green fog engulfed the whole top of the tree. I've never seen anything like it, never captured anything like it since, but I did capture that on video. You get walked up on in here, you'll hear footsteps in the grass behind you.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with that. There. Oh yeah. Very familiar with that. It used to happen to me all the time as a kid walking through graveyards.
Going to their structures, a lot of their structures are so big and that they could only be made for one reason: to be seen from the sky. And that is a huge thing. They could be the commanders, or say like the people at an airport, the grounds people, on the tarmac guiding the planes in, and that's what I've said for a while, that the forest is like an airport, and that these giant UFOs do come in and they do sit atop the treetops, but everything has its job to bring in that UFO. The trees are all made aware, the beings are then made aware, because the forest are the beings, and the beings are the forest. And everybody has their own job to bring in this UFO, wherever it may have come from. But they definitely, I've even heard people say that Bigfoot drive or flying saucers. That has been said multiple times, that they themselves are alien in nature. They are not from this world. I don't believe that they're from this world, and that they are a slave race, sadly, like us humans are.
Making our way back from the graveyard, we had no idea that there may have been something following close behind.
And it's not supposed to do this. So can you say something, please? I'm going to turn it on so you can use it. Who's here with us right now? I said me. Who is you? It's not supposed to be. It's not. not supposed to make that weird noise.
Really?
Yeah, that's not supposed to be there. Who are you?
Dude, I'm getting fucking rushes of energy right now.
This has to be pressed to be turn on. Like, and it wasn't even on.
You're not following us from the graveyard, are you?
You don't have our permission to follow us. I think it just said wait. Oh my god.
Yeah, dude, it's intense, isn't it?
Here. Oh my god, my whole body. Who are you? You do not have permission to follow us home. You do not have my permission or his permission. Can you identify yourself, please? Say your name, please. Chris?
I don't know, but that energy that was here isn't here like it was a second ago.
This weird static is not supposed to be there.
This was by far some of the most intense energy I have ever felt in the way of something that's not supposed to be there. Not only did Alex's phone immediately open to this app in his pocket, we both experienced an incredible surge of energy, something very heavy, surrounding us. It took some time, but we were able to tell it that it did not have permission to follow us and that it needed to go.
I think the more nefarious aspect is happening now. In the beginning, it seemed to be okay. And I guess, if you go looking for things often happen or you find them. And that's, after I got taken for 3 days, I was already into the Bigfoot thing, like many years, like since I was little. But, getting taken, from one spot and then placed to next, I mean, that's going to flip your world upside down, because that's like a life-changing experience. And it was even more life-changing when I got shown where I got taken 3 days later. And I never really did much thinking about the 3, the number 3, is a powerful number. But on that 3rd day, I went out in the woods and I kept asking him, "Where did you take me? I know it was one of you guys in here. I don't know who did it, but I want to know where you guys took me." And then, boom, I got taken again and shown their beautiful world, wherever that may be, whether it be underground. A lot of us think that they may live in inner Earth, or it could be another world or other dimension. We don't actually know, and I wish I could tell you where it was, but I don't honestly know where it was. But I can tell you that it's very Earth-like in nature, except everything's much more bright, everything's glowing, like the energy is crazy there, like the leaves were the color of green laser pointers, and things were moving. That was another thing, things were moving, like everything was truly alive and the most vibrant green I've ever seen. I never saw a sky. It was just a canopy of trees, just a solid canopy. But yet everything was still lit. That was an interesting part. That everything was lit. And so it's like it didn't need light, but I would assume there's light. But the trees were gigantic. I mean, bigger than houses, and I have no idea how high, 1,000 feet tall. I don't even know. But I never saw the sky. But
I did see 4 Bigfoot, and they were huge, and one came out from behind a tree as I hid stupidly behind one. And then I walked out, and then I greeted these 4 Bigfoot who stood before me, and they then told me that my friend and I had interrupted something that humans shouldn't see that night, and that they had to move us and or protect us from whatever that was. And we were only brought there for a short time. That's what they told me. And then with their combined effort of raising their arms up just above chest height, they phased me out of their world back onto the path into my woods again. And I've been being taken ever since, and that was 7 years ago.
Alex's story defies explanation with the frequency of his experiences and the element of constant abduction. Uninterrupted in this way, why are some so prone to such traumatic and long-standing interactions? Where is the balance between who we are and what these energies may be? If what Alex goes through is reflective of individual evolution, we may all find ourselves someday in some physicality with the same variables swirling about our lives. We all have unique paths to traverse on this planet, no one more valid than the next, and yet our range of experiences is unquantifiable.
I've caught fairies, pixies, nymphs, like all different types of beings, and they're all in here, and they just cloak themselves. They're here right now, like we are standing next to them right now. And that's probably all the energy that we're feeling, because they know we're coming out here to film, and they know that you're here, and I prayed for them to give us something good tonight, so I hope that happens. And already with the energy feeling, I think that's just, that's cake.
As time goes on, and we continue to follow Alex and his story, we may find truth just up ahead. In the meantime, we will be perplexed by this mystery and enigma that is Alex Oien.